Hello and welcome to Madam Speaker, the podcast by Hilmer's Network, where we take a deep dive with the female candidates ahead of the next federal election. And today I'm thrilled to have in the studio Jo van der Plaat, the Liberal candidate for the seat of Eden-Monaro. Jo, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Charlotte. I am really looking forward to this.
So tell me a little bit how the campaign's been so far.
Good. I mean, obviously Eden-Monaro is a huge electorate, 33,000 square kilometres. So I've done 95,000 kilometres since I've been pre-selected.
Wow.
Had a few car services along the way.
I was just about to say, how's your car going?
Yeah, it's going. It's going in for a service next week. I mean, it needs to be in tip-top shape to get me around because I don't think I can even change a tyre. I'll be frank.
Yeah, I actually can't change a tyre either, though I would like to learn. I think that should be taught in girls' schools, actually.
Yes.
I think that would be a very handy practical skill.
I know. It's not like that I don't want to do it. It's just I'm like, I do other things,
Yeah.
but it is a good skill to have. I have NRMA roadside, so I'm good.
That's good. And you haven't had to call them yet?
No.
Oh,
Haven't locked the
that's
keys in. Haven't had a flat tyre.
Touching wood. Yeah, only early days yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a massive electorate, isn't it? It is one of the bigger ones in New South Wales. Tell me a little bit about like some of the main kind of places that we might recognise in Eden-Monaro, and also, just as an aside, do a lot of people call it Eden-Monaro, or am I saying it right even?
Monaro is right, and
Okay.
I do laugh. So I do have some mates that live up here, and they always call it Eden-Monaro, and I have to say to them, it's not a car.
Yeah.
It's Monaro. So yes, thank you.
Good for me.
Monaro's right. You've done it right. But so inland, it goes from just north of Goulburn, so everyone would know Goulburn, all the way down to the ski fields.
Yeah.
And then on the coast, it goes from just north of Narooma,
Yeah.
all the way down to Eden, and in fact, sort of down to the border.
What's been front of mind for people in the electorate that you've been speaking to?
Yeah, look, I said to someone the other day, I feel like a broken record, but it's cost of living.
Yeah.
So cost of living is definitely number one. Number two would be skilled staff shortages, closely followed by housing supply. And 2 and 3 are often linked. So I've got lots of employers that will say to me, even if I can find staff, I've got nowhere for them to live.
Yeah.
So they're
I've heard
quite often
that.
interlinked.
And so what do they do about that? Like, how do they figure that out?
What's interesting, obviously, we've got Snowy 2.0
Yeah.
that's been happening for the last few years. So has been a huge influx of people. They've managed that a little bit better over the last 18 months and built essentially like little Olympic villages.
Yeah, okay.
So there's one in Cooma. There are a lot of FIFO workers, so they're in and out. But what initially happened, as soon as everyone had a sense that this was all going to go ahead, anyone in Cooma that had a spare few dollars bought whatever houses were available in terms of investment properties. I mean, that's great. We saw lots of growth. As a lawyer, I had a lot of work at that time, and they're renting them out. What it did do is obviously perhaps price some locals out of the market because it meant there was this
Huge demand.
rapid increase in pricing for rentals and for properties. We've seen that kind of spill over, Snowy or even renting down on the coast, and essentially people drive up and work for the week and then go back.
Right.
It's settled down somewhat now that those villages are sort of up and running. But there is a mixed opinion down there about whether or not it's been good for Cooma or not good for Cooma.
Yeah, right. That's I can imagine that would be a hard thing for the local community to weigh up.
Yeah, because it's been such an integral part of Cooma and the surrounds since the original Snowy scheme. We are, I would say, the original multicultural success story. I mean, there were, and there still are, all sorts of demographies and like cultures there. So Greeks, Dutch, and obviously my last name, I've married into a Dutch family, and they came over from Holland after the war. And interestingly, and I don't know if this is going to come up later on, but this idea of when you come to a country, so they came to Australia and they were settled in a camp in Maitland called Camp Greta. And I love this story. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law actually met, not in Holland, but when they came to Australia.
I love those
I
stories.
know. And they were given 3 choices as to where they could live. It wasn't a just come here and decide where you would like to go. And so they were told they could move to either Orange, Bathurst or Cooma, all cold places.
Yeah.
And they chose to move to Cooma, and they started a transport company which transported everything up to the Snowy scheme. But they are all still pretty much in town. So you've got lots of Greeks, lots of Italians, lots of Polish, lots of Dutch, you name it. And they're all still there. Obviously had kids that have grown up, gone away, and a lot of them have come back. So I love living there. And if you've ever been to Cooma, as you come into town, the park has a row of flags, and they are the flags of every culture, every country that came and worked on the Snowy scheme.
I've got cousins down in Nimitabel, so that's usually when we head through Cooma.
That's Angus Taylor territory.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your childhood, like where you grew up and, you know, what that was like.
Yeah. So I was actually born in Sydney, and I'm a Shire girl. So I was down in Cronulla as a little one, started my schooling at Sutherland Public, which was great. Stayed there until I finished infants, and then we moved to Picton, which was it was not classified as Sydney back then, but I think it is now. It's sort of certainly outskirts of Sydney now. And I did primary school there, but my stepdad actually got a job when I was in Year 6 down in Cooma.
Right.
So we moved to Cooma when I started high school. So I did high school down there, which was great. An amazing place to sort of bring up a family. But like most kids, when I finished high school, I came back to Sydney to study.
Yeah.
But when I was in Year 12, I met a lad.
Yes.
And he followed me to Sydney.
Uh-huh.
And
is he the Dutch lad?
He is. And we just recently celebrated 29 years married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he followed.
Oh, that's
We
nice.
got married and had our first, our son Zach, and he was about 1. And we just kind of sat down one night and just said, look, I don't think we want to bring kids up here.
Yeah.
He was working down the coast at the time, so we weren't seeing each other too much. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So all our parents were back in Cooma, and I think that was just that natural.
It's your village.
It would be great to have family and parents around as we start a family.
Yeah.
So we moved back to Cooma in 2003.
Yeah.
We've been there ever since. Love it.
And so what have you done since 2003 in Cooma, and what has your husband done for work?
Yeah, so he's a builder. He's a local builder. That runs in the family. I feel like they're either builders or they're nurses. So when we moved back to Cooma, I was actually a licensed conveyancer at the time, but I'd been studying to get my law degree.
Yeah.
So when we moved back to Cooma, I thought, oh, God, how am I going to do this? I was working full-time in Sydney at a law firm and doing my classes at night at UTS to get my law degree.
So that's a busy lifestyle.
Yeah, it was big, and by then we'd had Zach. So I was doing that as a first-time mum as well.
Another thing.
So, we moved back to Cooma, and I thought, oh, how am I going to do this? So I had to sort of hunt around to find a university that did distance education, essentially.
Uh-huh. And that wouldn't have been as prominent then as it is now.
Correct. So there wasn't that much to pick from, but Macquarie University actually had a distance ed course. So I was like, fantastic. So I got a transfer, and the plan was I was going to just move back to Cooma, finish my degree, and then get a job.
Yep.
I think it was about 3 weeks before we moved, and my father-in-law rang me and he said, oh, there's an ad in the local paper for one of the local law firms looking for a licensed conveyancer. Are you interested? And my husband said to me, just go and talk to them. He said, you're going to be bored in a month.
Yeah.
They set up a new business about 6 months after I'd started and asked me to run it. So I moved into this conveyancing firm and ran that for a couple of years while I was doing all my other bits and pieces. But and in that time, fell pregnant and had our daughter Cooper, finished the degree, and then moved back into the and basically did my supervision period for 2 years and then became a partner. And I was at that firm for almost 20 years.
So in that time, so while you weren't a qualified lawyer to start with, you clearly graduated from law.
Yes.
While you're there.
Yeah. So finished that, and amazing. Great degree.
Yeah. What made you go into it? What made you want to be a lawyer?
Yeah, a lot of people used to ask me that, and I mentor a lot of junior lawyers, and that's a question that I always ask them. But I have wanted to be a lawyer since I was 10 years old. It was, I think it came out of some circumstances in my family life, and I just had a very, very strong compass for what is fair and what is right. And those concepts can sometimes be confused with what actually happens in the real world when a client comes to me and says, I would like to commence proceedings for X. And I'm saying, well, why do you want to do that? Because it's not right. I'm like, well, that I probably agree with you, but the law probably says something different. So there is a difference, but I had a very strong compass for wanting to act for people that didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And that was my driver. So I didn't quite get the marks to get into uni. But at the time I was interested in perhaps pursuing something in the health space in law. So I took myself off and did a nursing degree as my first degree to get that kind of science behind me. My mum often says, Jo always knows where she needs to go. She just takes the long way to get there, long path to get there. So after nursing, I actually went to TAFE for 12 months and did like an legal admin course. And my first job was in a law firm as a legal secretary. And I actually loved that because I feel like if you're starting at the bottom, by the time you get to the top, you've got all these skills that just are so handy.
As opposed to coming in midway and not having an appreciation for kind of the nuts and bolts.
Like even I can type like 120 words a minute, and it is fantastic. And I would never have got that if I hadn't gone and done that course. So like just really practical, good life skills.
So when you were working in the law firm in Cooma, so how long were you with that company for?
So I was started in 2003 and I finished up, I retired from the partnership in June 2021.
Okay. Massive stint.
It is. So it was a long stint, and I used to say to someone, oh my God, who would stay in a job for 20 years, right? But I almost did.
And you kind of end up there by mistake and you're like, I haven't got cold feet yet, or I'm not, itchy. Or
I know. And working in a general practice firm in the country is fantastic in terms of the types of work that you do, the flexibility that it gives you. If one of my kids had, an assembly and they were getting an award, I'd just say, look, hey, I'm just ducking up the road. I'll be back in half an hour. And I used to think, God, I'd never be able to do that if I was still in Sydney.
100%.
So it did give me a lot of flexibility. But shortly after I became admitted as a solicitor, the one of the partners that was at that firm when I first started, June McPhee, amazing, was just wrapping up because she was moving to Sydney to become the president of the New South Wales Law Society. And she had sort of said to me, oh, you should get involved if that's something that you're interested in. And I very much was interested. So I joined or applied to join one of their committees, which was the Rural Issues Committee, completely in my wheelhouse. And that was pretty much sort of 2009 I started practicing, so 2010. And I absolutely loved it. What that gave me was, I think often as professional women, and in the bush, there's not a lot of organisations that you can join where there's a professional network. So I saw that as an opportunity for me to feel like I was staying in touch with the law. I think sometimes when you're not in the Sydney CBD, there can be a sense of you're missing out on something. So for me, it was making sure that I was still connected and keeping up to date with the law. I was building new friendships because this committee was made up of solicitors from all across New South Wales in regional and rural areas. And it was phone a friend. So honestly, we formed great and my phone actually just rang as I got in here from a lady that I met who's another lawyer in Wagga who's on that committee, and we've stayed in touch over the years. So it's been fantastic. Beautiful. But just if I came across a curly issue, I'd just send an email out to the group or ring one and say, have you had this before? Like,
How helpful.
It's great.
And I know you went on to be the president of the Law Society, is that right?
Yes.
The New South Wales Law Society?
Yes, yeah. So
it's incredible.
That's why I retired from partnership in 2021. Yeah. It's a full-time role in Sydney.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time to come back because obviously we were still sort of trying to manage COVID in 2021 and I needed to find somewhere to live and I had to actually employ someone in Sydney to go and find somewhere for me to go because I couldn't come up here. It was just a bit, times. I almost feel like I've wiped it from my memory.
I think I have too. Yeah, I can't remember, like my time is completely warped from the COVID years. Like it's done something funny.
Yeah, same. It was like this blip on the radar and we're now business as usual. But so I had to move to Sydney for 12, 18 months.
And do you think that, what's drawn you to law, do you think it's a similar thing that's drawn you to politics? And do you think that's why a lot of lawyers end up as politicians?
I do think that. I really do. And in fact, one of my questions at pre-selection, someone got up and said, why do we need another lawyer in the Liberal Party or for pre-selection? And I said, well, look, I think we bring a very unique set of skills and skills that are of huge benefit in government, whether it be just being able to read 1,000 pages really quickly. I was just about
to say the reading that lawyers get used to. And I have seen a lot of, the submissions and the inquiries of Parliament and you need to be a good reader.
Yeah, you do. And
a fast reader.
Yeah, so quick, but being able to scan something really quickly and pick the eyes out.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I've got 15 minutes to get on top of this. What are the three main points that I can draw out of this? I guess that's also good for media as well.
Yeah.
As the Law Society president, I did quite a bit of media and as you know, often we'd get a call and say, hey, can you be down behind Parliament House in like 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And I'd have to get across the brief in 10 and you'd be walking down Macquarie Street, like looking at my phone and scrolling and going, okay, I need to be on this because there's like 30 seconds and they'll probably take 9 seconds if I'm lucky and I need to make sure what I say is on point. Yeah. So that's picking the eyes out.
The amount of times as a reporter I would call, talent that we were hoping to have on a story and I'd say, we're doing this story, can we do an interview with you? And they're like, yeah, sure. Do you want to do it next week? And I'm like, no, buddy, it is in the next 3 hours or it is not happening. So that would always freak people out that weren't used to it. But yes, it's a great skill set to have.
It's something that I've struggled with, I will say a little bit in terms of as a lawyer, we're very, we plan.
Yes.
But just having that ability to just be a little bit more agile is something I've had to work on over the years. But I think I'm getting there.
I also think you can't be a perfectionist in politics. And you can't be a perfectionist in media, or it's a lot harder because things happen so quickly that you've got to be comfortable. I did some shocking live crosses in my time, not through lack of preparation or anything, but just because you're moving so fast and you'd get tongue-tied or various things would happen. And you just had to really make peace with embarrassing yourself, and everyone watching. And it's
Do you think women, I think women in particular, we have pretty high standards for ourselves. Yes. And I think
also, we've seen that audiences hold women to a higher standard. And we know that women, get a lot more online bullying as politicians than the men do. Which is awful, but it's the reality.
I remember my supervising partner at Baker's said to me, Jo, sometimes 99% is good enough.
Yeah.
And that's to that, you need to at some point say, what's going to be the return on investment for me?
Yeah.
In putting in all that extra time.
Yes.
It might just be okay if you don't need to do that all the time.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yeah. One of the areas that I know you are quite passionate about is equitable resourcing and, places like the bush and rural areas having access to good health and legal services. What are the voids of that you've noticed in the electorate?
So health is probably the number one issue.
Like GPs or hospitals? Or?
Yeah, so GPs. The hospitals is a different story. I think we've got Canberra that's pretty close.
Yeah.
And so Canberra's the only level 5 hospital for us. So if something serious happens, say in Bega or in Cooma, then you're put in an ambulance and you're sent off to Canberra. There's some tension at the moment between New South Wales and the ACT about just how many patients the ACT takes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's very current at the moment that I'm sort of keeping my eye on. But certainly a lack of access to GPs. And I would say I don't ever use the word crisis lightly, but there is a crisis, particularly down on the South Coast, with access to GPs. So we have the GPs mostly that are down there are almost at retirement age or are past retirement age and have said to me they won't retire until they get a replacement because they are just so committed to their patients and ensuring they get the primary care that they deserve. And obviously the South Coast, the demographic is there's a highly aged population, so a lot of people that have retired down there have complex medical needs. So there is one doctor that has made the decision that he just can't stay any longer, so he'll be retiring at the end of the year, which will leave a town of about 3,000 people without one single doctor. I absolutely loved our health announcement the other day. I think that's going to go some way towards alleviating some of those issues. Last year, we already announced that we're going to put out the $400 million to attract GPs doctors into GP, so into general practice.
Yeah.
And that the beneficiaries of that will be our communities because we'll be able to have that money because one of the big things is if you go and work in a hospital or if you work at a super clinic, then usually you're getting about $300 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's not sustainable for a private surgery to be able to try and pay a GP that. If they were to do that, the doctors have said to me they'd probably have to charge between $120 and $130 for a consultation. So that amount is passed on to us. And they said, well, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So what the recent announcement will do will provide those incentive payments.
Yes.
It'll also provide a lot of other things that we desperately needed, particularly for female doctors, paid parental leave, a number of other things that I think will just level the playing field for them.
Because, for parents of young children, being a GP can be an appealing job,
It can be. And we've seen one of the other issues, it's not an issue, but something to note is that there's a changing demographic in medicine where a lot of GPs, female GPs, choose to work part-time because they've got family responsibilities. So I think the package that we've announced really makes sure that we look after these people.
Yeah, totally. We've just got to make it attractive to people. Yeah, there's just no other way about it. I know you're also passionate about building a sense of community in the bush. We touched on COVID before with, everything going online, but it really is vital to have in-person kind of networks as well. Is that something that you see in Eden-Monaro?
It is. It very much is. And it's a conversation that I have quite regularly about volunteers.
Yes.
It's interesting when you look at – so I was brought up in a family where giving back to your community was really important. So I had done that from a really young age, whether it was vacuuming church after church or putting flowers on or turning up at a barbecue and helping out. It just that's natural to me, and we brought our kids up like that. But I think as an adult, and as you said, particularly after things like COVID, I struggled to get back out there, but I knew that I needed to get back out there.
You struggled from a social point of view? You just got a bit comfortable in your own home?
I think I just became a bit of a hermit.
Yeah.
And I like my own company.
I went the other way.
Did you? You were like, let me
I went wild. Yeah. I was just like, people.
Yeah.
Because I'm a massive extrovert. So, I didn't struggle.
People often ask me, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And I call myself an extroverted introvert.
Yeah. So you recharge
Yes. With the Law Society stuff, for 10 years, every 2 weeks, I was flying to Sydney, doing a couple of days, going back, still managing a practice. By then I had kids. There was 2 kids at school and a husband that I needed to pay some attention to.
He needs to fit in somewhere.
I like I like having my cup full, and I thrive on that. But at some point you just go, ugh.
Yeah. 100%.
I just need to stop. I need to recharge. And they're the times when I say, hey, can we just, friends, get together. Let's go out for a meal. We don't stop enough.
Yeah.
We don't stop and just smell the roses.
Yeah. And so that kind of sense of community that you've created for yourself, how do you think we do that in the bush? How do you think we make that, a real priority for people in regional areas?
It's about stopping, like I said, it's about stopping and making time. There are some amazing volunteer organisations, and since coming on as a candidate, I have had the amazing privilege of meeting lots of them. So for me, I actually like, if I see someone that I think needs that extra bit of, hey,
connection,
love and some connection, I love that I've been able to visit all these different organisations and say to them, oh, hey, I know that the Lions Club have got these great, a great bunch of people. They meet every second Wednesday night at the club. If you want to go, I'll go with you.
Yeah.
Or the men's shed.
Yeah.
Hey, they're doing some amazing stuff at the moment. I'm going to go visit. Do you want to come along with me?
Men's sheds are amazing.
I think I've been to nearly every men's shed in Eden-Monaro. They're such a favourite of mine.
Yeah. So I think we should do, you know how when you have a baby, you're kind of automatically put into a mother's group? I reckon we need to do more focus on fathers groups, because a lot of dads are now far more hands-on than they ever were, but I don't think that they have that same, they're really plugged into the other dads that are going through a similar experience. And I think that's really important. I volunteered when I was at uni. I did Meals on Wheels, and I'm proud of doing that.
Isn't it rewarding?
I think it was both a sides thing for me to do. I just don't know why I did that. I think I always
what drew you to
knew. It? I think I always knew that, very honestly, as a uni student, which is some uni degrees, my degree was about 12 contact hours a week, and that's full time. And I think I knew I was working as well. Yeah. For Channel 7, so I had a big workload, but I knew that I'd never have time again, and I do like to give back, and I didn't have finances at that time to give money in donations, but I did have time.
Yeah.
And so I did Meals on Wheels, and I really loved it.
Yeah.
I found it really rewarding.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
I think that not only does it it broadens your knowledge of who's in your community, and it gives you this really great insight, and that makes you feel connected, and that makes you happier. And just the flow-on effect of it is just endless.
It's I think it's a win-win. We both, you get something out of it, they get something out of it in terms of that chat, that conversation, and some amazing stories.
Yeah,
that you get out of volunteering in that way as well.
Yeah. So I want to draw it back a little bit to, we spoke about why you went into law and the similarities between what drives you to go into law and what drives you to go into politics. Was there a moment that you knew you wanted to go into politics?
Like a light bulb? Or
was it
a
a slow
thunderbolt?
thing? Was it a slow simmer that you were like, hey, I could do that. Like, this aligns with my...
I don't think I had that light bulb moment, but it was probably a slow burn for me. I've never wanted to be a politician. It wasn't in my sort of 10-year plan. And in fact, I said to Janie Seal, because I did my first Sky yesterday, and she asked me the question. I said, this is the most asked question after cost of living, is why did you put your hand up?
Yeah.
I think there was lots of reasons. So I never had that light bulb moment, but it was I'd always had an interest in politics, and I always had an interest in, and I think this again comes from being a lawyer, is I'm good at solving problems, and I'm good at creating solutions. And I think that whole idea of whinging or standing on the sidelines and not getting up there and doing something about it is something that irks me. And I've always just jumped in and said, okay, I think everyone knows what the problem is, but coming up with a solution is a very different kettle of fish.
Yeah, and being committed to working for it.
Yes, yeah. And so there's some of the reasons. And I guess I just want to make a difference. And I know that sounds naff, but that is just I'm an incredibly hard worker. And I think there's a lot of issues out there, a lot of problems, and I have a skill set where I can apply those skills and fix it, coupled with that community connection. And I think that's really important. That's something that has really started to shine through as I've been getting out and about in Eden-Monaro is people don't want career politicians.
No.
I mean, often if I'm doing phone canvassing or I'm knocking on a door, someone will say, oh, you a politician? I'm like, no.
Yes.
Well, not yet anyway. Not yet anyway. But I'm here because I want to talk to you about the things that I see in my community as being things that we need to address. What's your take on it?
Yeah. Do you think, like, talking about that community in Eden-Monaro, which was obviously horrifically impacted by the bushfires, do you think following that the sense of community has increased in the electorate as a result of that?
I do, particularly in the areas that were severely impacted where we lost main streets, so areas like Cobargo, for example, a lot of community groups that were formed after that, and some of them are still going.
Yeah.
And to your point about sort of that mental health space is most of them have worked through rebuilding, or can I say there are some people that still are not back in houses, and that's an issue. But they've kept those groups going because they've formed such a unique and special bond, which I love. And I've been fortunate and privileged enough to be able to go along to some of those groups. And there's still a way to go.
Yeah. As you know, I'm in the 100th trimester of pregnancy. Everyone keeps being like, are you still pregnant? And I'm like, yeah, mate, I'm still pregnant.
You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you very much. And I'm taking an opposite approach. A lot of people are like, oh, don't listen to anyone's advice. I would like any advice I could get. So as a mum, is there any tips you've got for me?
Make time for yourself.
Okay.
And
Great. I support that one.
I remember they said to me, the nurses said, when your baby sleeps, you should sleep.
Yep.
And you might be tempted to go, oh, I've got loads of washing or whatever it might be, but just take that time. I remember just watching my baby sleep. You're never going to get that back.
Yeah, my mum says that babies are the biggest time wasters.
Yes.
You just stare at them.
But just gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're just gorgeous. So just, I know everyone's so busy and we have things but it only happens once and you're not going to get it back, I guess. And I look back and there are times where I think I was really I worked long hours and I wouldn't change anything. But I think in those early years, I took 12 months off when I had Zach, and 4 months in, my firm rang me and said, can you come back to work, please? The lady we hired to take your role as quick because it was full on. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to because I just really want to spend time because they're only that age once. So take time and sleep.
All right. I want to finish now with some rapid fire questions, which are a bit of fun. What was your first job?
Year 8, babysitting. And I used to work at this, like a hostel where school buses would come through because we lived down near the snow. So I'd go in before school and set the tables and serve breakfast. But I actually tell people that my first real job was a checkout chick at Woolies when I was 15.
Good one.
It was great. And I think that sets you up with some really good life skills, particularly dealing with grumpy customers on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
But working in a team and turning up to something on time. I also credit that with my early desire to never, ever want to be a member of the Labor Party.
Oh, yes?
Because I remember getting my first back then you got your pay in a little yellow packet.
Yeah.
And on the front it'd say what your gross, your net, and any deductions. And I remember coming home one day and I said to my mum, what's SDA? And she said, oh, that's your union fees. I said, I didn't sign anything for that to be taken out. She's like, oh, no, they're compulsory. I went, no, they're not compulsory. They don't do anything for me. If I want something, I'll go and ask myself.
Yep.
And I walked into the lady in the office, scary Mrs. Crimmins.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, hun, you don't get a choice in that. I'm like, right.
Right.
I'm on the rampage about this. So
who started this and how do I stop it?
I was quite happy when the law changed and it became voluntary.
Good. Who was your favourite or most impactful teacher and why?
Mr. Sim,
Mm-hmm.
year 11 and 12, 3-unit geography teacher. He was amazing. He was just one of those teachers that just completely invested in you, believed in you, knew that you could do better, be better, and challenged me all the time. But that course at the time, so that was 1990, was going through this sort of transition phase where the curriculum had started talking about this idea of, Australia as a global responsible citizen, and introduced, humans and the environment. I think I've said this to him. I mean, I majored in international environmental law at uni in my law degree, and he's a big reason as to why I sort of went down that path. Absolutely loved it.
Amazing. And at Cooma High?
Monaro High.
Monaro High.
Yes.
Wonderful. Shout out to Mr. Sim.
Mr. Sim, who's now a client.
Oh, is he? Hilarious, how the tables turned. If you could change one thing instantly that would improve the state of politics and democracy in Australia, what would it be?
Decency.
Decency.
I've done a few reels on this since being a candidate. I have this really favourite Morgan Freeman saying, which is, just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I hate you, and we need to relearn that in society. And I feel like we've gone down this path where civil discourse has almost disappeared, and this idea that if I have a conversation with you and you don't agree with me, why is it that I'm wrong?
Yes.
Is this just it just begs belief that we don't understand or get or grasp or even appreciate the fact that this diversity of thought and views creates so much better decision making and better outcomes. And I'm talking about everything from your own kitchen table right up to policy decision making. And I think it frustrates me sometimes to see that there's this sort of conversation now has become so binary.
What does your perfect Sunday look like?
Chucking the boat on the trailer.
Oh, good one.
Taking the fam down the coast, going for a bit of a fish.
Yep.
Maybe some oysters afterwards, and then head back home for a bit of a nap in the arvo.
Beautiful.
Love my nana nap.
Where do you take the boat out? What area?
Narooma. Yeah, we usually go to Narooma. My in-laws had a holiday house there for quite some years, so they've got all up and down the coast. I'm so spoiled as a candidate, having sort of the snow at one end and the coast at the other. Some beautiful spots.
Narooma's trendy now. Justin Hens has opened up a store there.
I know. He's brought up a few little spots.
Yeah, I think that's been quite controversial, so we might not open that can of worms right at the final hour. Do you have a book, TV series or movie to recommend? And it doesn't have to be highbrow. It can be lowbrow.
I don't get to watch much TV anymore, but I do have a huge love of the English language. So I love period dramas.
Okay.
I don't know that I'd recommend it because people have already probably seen it, but I loved Bridgerton.
Okay. Oh yeah, Bridgerton.
It's kind of got the costumes.
It's fun.
It's got a great soundtrack.
Yeah, it does. It has a brilliant soundtrack.
And it's got that little bit of saucy.
Yes,
so
it does.
It's kind of got everything. My guilty pleasure.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I've told anyone this.
Oh gosh.
Colin Hoover.
Oh yeah, great.
Brilliant.
You fly through them.
Airport books.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago I was in the airport and I'm like, I just grabbed something. So I bought this book
Highly
thinking
addictive.
I've heard about this.
Yeah.
My daughter came home for holidays and she saw it. She's like, what have you got that for? All the girls read this. Mum, that's got really saucy stuff in. I'm like, okay, so answer me this. Why are you girls reading
Yeah,
this?
exactly. Well, my true in return for you, my true recommendations. Have you watched The Split?
No.
It's about a family of lawyers. It is
Hilarious.
brilliant. Just brilliant.
Oh.
You have to watch it.
Okay.
So
good.
The Split is really good when you need, half an hour to
Just
relax in the midst of the campaign. And then Lisa Jewell, have you read any of hers?
No, but I've heard of her.
Equally addictive.
Oh, good.
Just inhale them.
Good.
So they're my two for
Thank you.
What's the most impressive but frivolous thing that you can do?
Hospital corners.
Oh, good
So
one. Did you ever work as a nurse?
No, I didn't because
Okay.
obviously that was not the plan.
Yes.
But you do a prac where you learn how to make a bed.
Yeah.
Can I just say, so like in tuck
Yeah.
to the point where it's difficult to get under the sheet, to the point where we actually don't sleep with a top sheet. My husband's like, just don't do that to me.
I'm in a coffin.
Yeah. And if I do, or if he like rips it off.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I can't do that. But yeah, hospital corners.
Hilarious. One other one that I ask everyone, I'm going to ask you second last. Is there a woman that inspires you? Obviously, with Hilma's network and what we're about, we're trying to, inspire more women to go into politics and support other women. Is there anyone that comes to mind that's been a real kind of inspiration in your life?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question. I have been asked if I had like an idol, I guess, or someone I look up to. I've never been someone that has honed in on one particular person. I would say that something that I am really passionate about is we often talk about this idea of putting down a ladder so other women can come up.
Yes.
I like the idea, and I've always subscribed to the view of throwing a net down because I want as many women as possible to be climbing up that net and looking at success. But being brutally honest, my daughter.
Oh, that's beautiful.
She's been through a lot in the last couple of years, and to just watch her navigate, I mean, at that age, and you talk about screens, bullying.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm elected, there are a number of platforms that I want to be advocating on, and one is around teenage services for teenage mental health in the bush. I cannot tell you how many parents I just don't know from a bar of soap have come up to me in the last 12 months and said, I've had to pull my daughter out of school. Awesome. She lives in Bega and we had to drive to Orange to get help. That's 6 hours away.
Yeah.
Cooper has just managed to, there were some low points. And the last 2 years to watch her navigate things around online bullying, what that does to someone that age and how they build resilience around this and say, hey, I need to move on. I need to, I need to feel like I'm normal again. I need to be able to not feel like when I walked into a room, everyone's looking at me going, oh, you're that girl.
Yeah.
Is just the resilience and the kindness that she has shown to people in the face of such adversity, I think, is just like I look at that and go, man, I was not like that when I was that age.
Oh, good on her.
And I love that. And
so impressive.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you finish now. Yesterday when we spoke on the phone, we were talking about the episode with Amelia Hamer, who is the Liberal candidate for Kooyong. And I asked her in the rapid fire questions if she had ever cut her fringe or dyed her hair post a bad breakup or anything. And you said, ask me that one.
Yeah,
so tell me your story.
I absolutely laughed because it was the first, like, as soon as you asked that question, I cracked up because I'm like, oh, so 1996, February, got married, had the obligatory, like, long hair so you can do the updo and stuff. So we were on our honeymoon and I said to my husband, I'm just going to go and like get my hair cut. So I walked out
On your honeymoon?
on my honeymoon.
Where are you?
We were in the Gold Coast. It was hot and like long hair. I had long hair. I walked out with a pixie cut. Like chopped the whole thing off. Chopped the whole thing off, and I walked out and he went, "Where's your hair?" But I have also dyed my hair.
Oh, God. And was he like, where's my wife?
Yeah.
Where's
like,
my bride?
Yeah, can you just like bring it back? No, he's like,
Oh, God.
what possessed you to do that? Because I've never had short hair.
Yeah.
What possessed you to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just needed a change.
Yeah.
So I'm not one of these people that goes and has massages or facials or whatever. My hair's my thing. So if you, I think Cooper said to me, Mum, the girls at school Googled you one like recently, because a lot of them are actually interested in politics, which I love. It's fantastic. Yeah. And they're like, your mum's got like 20 different hairstyles.
So post-election, win or lose, I'm expecting a big new hairstyle for you.
Yeah, I love that.
Well,
great question.
Jo, thank you so much for coming on Madam Speaker. We really appreciate it. And good luck.
Thank you, Charlotte. It was fantastic.
Authorised by C. Mortlock, Hilmer's Network Foundation Limited, Sydney.